I'm back with another crit race. I have moved up to the B race, so now this is the Cat 3-4 field, and as you can see, it was raining quite a bit. I entered this race with two different goals. One, to just kind of learn how to race properly, because I knew this field was going to be stronger than anything I'd seen before, and I wanted to win a frame. In the 4-5 race, the back portion of the pack was immediately dropped at the beginning of the race, so I wanted to stay near the front for this. Ultimately, that did not happen, which I guess makes sense. Everybody in this race knows what they're doing. I think only a couple people ended up being lapped in this race. But I wanted to stay near the front, so I tried to get up near the front as soon as possible. This was a lot harder than any previous racing I had done. We're only about 2 minutes into this race, and already you can see these large gaps are opening up. In hindsight, I should have just left it and let the gap close itself back up. I didn't realize it would be just very messy in the beginning, but instead I'm out here in the wind trying to catch back up to the front group. And this kind of becomes a theme for the rest of this race. I spend way too much time out in the wind trying to close up gaps that would have closed themselves. Somebody else would have chased this gap in, I assume. The whole field would eventually come back together, but this is just the very beginning of the race. There's some big separation, and I'm trying to do all the work right now when I really don't have to. When riding in a fast, competitive group ride out on the road, I find myself naturally moving towards the front of the pack because that's how a pace line works. People peel off to the back and then you move forwards. But in this race, I consistently found the opposite to happen. People from the rear and the draft would attack up the front, and as a result, I would be naturally, if I was just sitting in position, I would be moving farther and farther back in the pack, which I think is something that I have to work on, and I have to make sure I'm staying with the attacks better so that I'm not constantly pushed right out to the back. About 6 minutes in here, and you can see that I'm just leaving too much space between me and the guy in front of me. You could probably partially blame the rain on this, but I clearly need more practice in staying tight with the group just so I'm not putting out so much power just to keep the same speed that everybody else is doing. Now we're about 18 minutes of pretty uneventful riding into the race, and right about now, that's the bell and that's the flag that they wave for a preem lap. So a preem lap it's basically an extra bonus hot lap that's in the middle of the race. Whoever finishes this lap the fastest gets an extra prize. So this was one of my goals in this race, was to win a preem. I wasn't sure or confident at all that I could get an overall victory right there. That guy almost fell, rubbing wheels with the guy in front of him. But as you can see, this kind of front group, we're at the very front of the pack, they're getting kind of spicy here. They want to win the preem. Obviously, it's not a victory overall, but it's fun to get. So I was really hoping to get the preem here, and I knew already I was in good position. There's one lap to go, and I'm right near the front, but I'm not at the very front. I'm not pulling all the weight. I'm in a good draft, so I stayed right here for the next half the lap. About 40 seconds later, we're rounding the last turn, and here again, I'm in a very good position. I'm at third or fourth wheel. This guy starts sprinting off the front towards the finish, and I just stay right in his draft. I'm a bit farther back than I would ideally like, but overall very, very happy with this. I'm probably doing 400 watts at this point. This guy comes around to both of us. I jump on him as well. Again, I'm in the draft. This is pretty much, as far as I can expect, a perfect sprint, and at the finish line, I get ahead and get the preem for this lap. So that was definitely my peak performance for this race. After this point, what I really should have done was just sat in and relaxed as much as possible. Unfortunately, I did not. Either that or maybe make a breakaway. I'm not really sure. If I could have broken away with this guy, maybe that would have been a good opportunity. But we're only halfway through the race at this point. I don't think I would have had the legs anyway. So from here, I really should have tried to focus on drafting as much as possible in the main group. Unfortunately, as we will later see, I did not do that. Moments like this where I seem to be in a pretty good position, but then the field kind of just moves away from me and suddenly I'm out in the wind seem to happen pretty consistently with me. Like I'm in the draft behind this guy and then I decide to go to the right for some reason, and now suddenly the whole field is way off in the distance and I'm pushing all the wind by myself for no reason, and I've been dropped back several dozen places. So tactics like that, I think, are something I need to work on quite a lot. Now, right about here, I realized that a group has broken pretty far off the front. There are about 5 or 6 of them, and I knew immediately that somebody had to chase them down. Now, I don't want to do this, but during the race, I decided that it kind of had to be me. Nobody seemed to really be wanting to close this gap. Looking back, probably a bad tactic. I probably should have left it. Assumed somebody else would have closed the gap, but instead, I went and got on the front of the group, as you can see right here. So from here, I just stay right at the front for the next minute or so. Then this guy attacks from out of my draft, and of course I've been pulling this whole time, so I don't really have much of a sprint to go after him. So I just keep on the exact same speed as he heads up to the front to bridge to the next group. Again, why am I sitting here at the front pulling the entire pack? I don't know. Bad tactics. After a minute and a half of riding at the front, I finally close most of the gap. These guys come around me and finish off that effort. So immediately I think this was one of my biggest mistakes in the race. I guess other than sprinting for the preem, this had a huge impact. Way too much effort for really no reason. Somebody else would have closed the gap. Now the entire field is caught back on. That breakaway wasn't a success, and it was because of me. If I had a teammate, maybe it would have been a great strategy. I don't have a teammate, so it was not a good strategy. After all that effort, this guy up here breaks off the front, and nobody chases him down. Immediately, I'm right on the job, and I start heading right for this guy. So, I guess the main advice that I hear all the time is, you don't have to chase every single breakaway. Clearly, that's so true, but here I am, once again, chasing this breakaway of a single man who never had any chance of holding on by himself. There's still 15 minutes left in the race. That guy was never going to make it. But for some reason, I decided it was a good idea to sit at the very front of this pack and just hit the wind. Here, I thought I could catch these guys and jump in their draft, but I realized they had actually been lapped and were behind me, so I just kept going. At this point, it had been over a minute in the front, so plus the previous time, I'm going to hit 5 minutes of time just hitting air in the very front of this race for literally no reason. And it's costing me a huge amount. As you can see, whenever somebody attacks off, I have no sprint. I'm wasting all my power at these high steady state efforts. I can't respond to any actual attacks. Now we're about 38 minutes in. For the last 8 minutes, I've averaged over 300 watts, and there's only about 8 minutes left. So for the last 15 minutes of this race, I spent half of my time at threshold or over threshold power, which really is just why I was completely dead by the end. Clearly, I need to be going way, way easier so that I actually have a sprint left when we get to the end of these races. Here I am, nearly 10 minutes after he broke away. I'm finally catching up to this man. Absolutely insane effort. This guy is a lot larger than me, so putting out a lot more power. I think the only way I was able to catch up is I'm short enough I can stay arrow. But, of course, I put in all that effort, and we're immediately attacked. That guy's been pulling by himself. He's toast. I've been catching up to him. I'm toast. And we have another attack off the front. So really, it's never ending at this point. And I've been pulling for 10 minutes. And there's only 5 minutes left in this race. So I'm in a pretty bad position at this point as we're coming close to the finish. That's the bell for the final lap. This means there's one lap to go, and at this point I've been doing over 300 watts for the last 15 minutes. That's it. I've got nothing left. I have no chance. So I knew I was pretty much toast at this point. I just tried to stay and hang on to the front as long as I could. And there it is. This is the final sprint. I managed to barely hold on to 450 watts for 30 seconds. So I had nothing left in me. It was pretty bad. I finished 10th out of 23, I think. Overall, I think I did very well at this race. I'm very happy with the amount of power I put out. My tactics were just horrendous. And after all this, seeing me kind of get destroyed so badly in the end here, you might be wondering, well, how do you know what the tactics? Maybe you're just slow as hell. And that is a possibility. Maybe I'm weak. But for those who don't race, some interesting stats that I have here. My average power for this entire 45-minute race was 270 watts. Now, luckily for me, the guy who won also posted his ride on Strava, and I can look at how much power he made. This guy is taller and heavier than me, so to go the same speed as me, in theory, he has to do more power. He did 218 watts. This guy's doing 50 watts less than me, an average of 50 watts less, and he won the race. So I think that really points to very clearly that the tactics are huge. I'm going to get better at the actual riding my bike part. In terms of power, I have the power. I have the ability, in theory, I could win one of these races. I just have to, of course, easier said than done, but I just have to get good at the actual racing part. Here is the muffin that I won for the preem. It was pretty good, right from Duncan. And of course, the rain stopped and the roads start to dry up as soon as the race is done, and I'm heading home. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. If you have any advice for me in my burgeoning racing career here, please leave in the comments. I would love to know how to get better at this.